Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Anis binti Abdul Ghani. My matrix number is 0X-TEP21F1064. I'm a student of Diploma Engineering Electronic Communications Semester 3. To continue the task for the Communication Network subject, I will tell about web service in NGN. But before that, I will tell a little bit about NGN, which is Next Generation Network. Next Generation Network (NGN) is a packet-based network that can offer service such as telecommunication and can use a variety of broadband, quality of service, enable transport technologies. It also has service-related functions that are independent of underlying transport-related technologies. It allows consumers to freely access a variety of service provided. It encourages generalist mobility. And last, enabling the constant and widespread delivery of service to user. Okay, next for web service. Web service technologies is the most popular implementation platform for SOA. Web service distribute software component which can be described, published, discover and invoke with standard protocols. Web service communicate using XML and web protocols, which are pervasive, working both internally and across the internet. They support heterogeneous interoperability and use SOAP for service call, WSDL for service description, and UDDI for service registration and discover. Service provider. A service provider provides the interface for the web service and the implementation of the application. The service provider is also responsible for creating the definition of the service and publishing that definition to meet the universal description. Service registry. A service registry is a way in which web services are formally published. The service registry is based on the UDD specification and reflects information about service provided by the service provider. The service registry provides a service requester with a web service description language, WSDL, service description, and a uniform resource locator URL that point to the service itself. Last is service requester. A service requester is a consumer of a web service and uses the service registry to gain information about and access to a web service. There's three types of web service, which are SOAP, Simple Object Access Protocol. Second is UDDI, Universal Description, Discover and Integration. And last is WSDL, Web Service Description on Language. Next, the advantage for this web service are revealing the existing function on framework. A web administration is a controlled piece of code that can be accessed remotely through HTTP. In other words, if often begins with an HTTP inquiry, web service provide you the ability to access the unsuccessful of your current code relative to the framework. When it is exposed on the system, other apps can access your program's functionality. Okay, next, ability. This knowledge change potential when a complex IT framework is simplified into service. Adding new functionalities to satisfy fresh business demands entails getting existing service. Naturally, some more administration could need to be produced, but overall it's easy than resembling another framework from scratch. Okay, next, the advantage is cost and interoperability. Okay, so for disadvantage for web service, Web service simplicity can be both a benefit and a drawback, depend on the situation. Web service employ plain text protocols which identify data in a somewhat verbose manner. This indicate that requests for web service are bigger than those transmitter using a binary approach. Really, only slow or highly busy connection present a problem with the extra size. Through the fundamental web protocols, HTTP and HTTPS are straightforward. They weren't designed for prolonged browser will typically establish an HTTP connection, request a web page and maybe some pictures, and then break the connection. A client connects to the server in a typical CORBA or RMI content and may remain connected for a long time. Web service make it challenge to communicate in this way, so you have to put in a little additional effort to make up for what HTTP can do for you. The issue here is HTTP and HTTPS for web service is that they are stateless. The connection between the server and client is often brief, and there is no awareness of one another when no data is being transferred. Okay, next, the server is unaware that the client is no longer active if the client send a request to the server, request some information and then crash it right afterward due to a power failure. The server requires a method for monitoring client activity and for determining when a client is no longer active. When a client intently connect to a server, the server often provides the client some types of session identifier. When the client submits more requests to the server, it utilizes this identifier. By doing this, the server is able to recollect whatever data it may have on the client. In most cases, a server must rely on a times out mechanism to know whether a client has stopped being active after a set period of time. If a server hasn't heard from a client, it's considered that the client is inactive and delete whatever client data it was holding onto. This added expense result in more work for web service. Okay, last but not least, for the conclusion, software development has a lot of promise because to the integration of many supplies on various platforms made possible by web service can expedite a transaction in a distributed and decentralized environment with enough security measure in place. One of NGN central topics, the coverage of communication and internet service, was examined. Is this article along their key difference and a little difficult associated with combining them into composite service.